Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, December 17th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Big Ten championship game against Northwestern is in 2 days. The college football playoff selection show is in 3 days. The game against Michigan, only 345 days away. This is the second time in 3 years that Ohio State will face the Wildcats in Indianapolis. And what might be the most remarkable part of Northwestern's success is just how consistent they've been over the past decade or so. They're basically never flashy on offense. But outside of last year's Buckeye visit to Evanston, they don't really get blown out very often either. And with Ohio State potentially looking to win with some style points this weekend, it is an interesting team to get matched up with. Buckeye Scoop's X's and O's guru Ross Fulton is here for our weekly Chalk Talk show. And Ross, what is it about the Northwestern defense that allows the results to be some of the best in the country when the talent, very clearly is not at that level?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat goes to the stability you just discussed. So, Mike Hankwitz, their defensive coordinator, has been there for 13 years. He just announced his retirement. And so they have a system that they run. And so all those guys, drill for years in that system. They believe in it. They have answers out of it. And, they know what they are and they aren't. So, they're willing to, as I discussed in my article, to give up certain routes while trying to force a team to drive the length of the field. And, it's easier said than done, especially for most college teams, to consistently throw the football on 10 to 12 yard out routes and score touchdowns that way.
Well, and you wrote in that article that you mentioned the too high safety look that Hankwitz prefers. There's kind of a trade-off there. Yes, you're less likely to give up a big play, so you're making people really drive more methodically. But if and when Ohio State goes to a 3-wide personnel, which they do a lot, it forces Northwestern to make a choice they probably don't really want to.
Yeah, and so this gets into, to me, basically, if you're looking at the structure of a defense, it all starts with I work back to front. And so it's all about those choices you make and how you want to run coverages affect everything else. And so, so basically Northwestern plays cover 4 or soft quarters coverage, which is, they divide the field into 4, and literally the corners take the outside 4s and the safeties take the inner 4s. There's different ways to play cover 4. When Ohio State won the national championship, they also were a cover 4 team, but they pressed their corners. They played it more aggressively than Northwestern does. And so, but as you said, so when you get down to that, if Ohio State, by only having that single middle of the field safety, is able to put 3 corners on the 3 wide receivers, the Sam linebackers over the tight end, and so you have all the receivers covered up. Obviously, if you take a second guy and put him back as a safety, then you just have one less guy to do that with. And so Northwestern, and they like to keep 3 linebackers on the field too. They're similar to Iowa. Iowa also is a 2 deep team that keeps 3 linebackers and basically tries to slowly suffocate you. And so they sort of split the difference between that receiver, the slot receiver, and the tackle on the line of scrimmage. And, that creates a conflict for that guy because he has to both, obviously, you got to, if you didn't cover that slot receiver, you just would throw bubble screens all day. But he also needs to, what I call, trigger and fold into the run game. So he does have a run responsibility. And so, Ohio State, the extent that there are conflicts in the defense, both with those safeties and that people call an overhang defender, because he's overhanging the box. Those are the areas that you can exploit, and that's what Ohio State's done the last couple of years.
Well, and that guy is at the center of something you wrote about, which is how they use a cue from one of the wide receivers to help them attack in the run game. Can you explain that and whether that's something Ohio State might be able to take advantage of on Saturday?
Yeah, and so essentially what Ohio State's done against Northwestern is let's compare it to a boxing, essentially. The jab is they keep throwing those short or medium out routes or hitch routes because Northwestern, again, the way they play their cover 4 or quarters is they keep their corners deep. They essentially, you'll see them, if you look in all 22, there's 4 across, of DBs. And so they're willing to give you, and Hankwitz will admit, the weakness is I'm going to give up those out routes. And again, most, college hash marks are wider. Most people aren't Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. It's hard for college quarterbacks to complete those, thrown to the opposite side. But so Ohio State's completed those. And then when they go for explosive plays, they target the safeties. And the reason is that cover 4 safeties are, as you said, so they're reading what's called the number 2 receiver. So the second inside receiver, if you're looking from the sideline in, And so usually that's a tight end or a slot receiver. And so, you have 4 deep defenders. If an offense runs that number 2 receiver vertically, the safety is responsible for him. If he stays into block, that the safeties can then come downhill. And so what looks like a 2 deep scheme can then put 9 defenders against the run. And that's how Northwestern can outnumber people. But again, you can conflict those safeties by, as you said, one thing you can do is keep the tight end to block. And so Ohio State likes to do that a lot. They show the go under center, they'll show that hard play action, and they'll do basically a 2-man deep post crossing route. And so that throws off those safeties. Or, there's other things you can do to sort of send 2 guys into their zone that we could discuss.
Yeah, I mean, there was one play that you wrote about this week where Ryan Day took what he knew about Northwestern safeties and used it to get a really easy touchdown pass to Chris Olave last year. Can you explain that?
Yeah, and I should say, I kind of joke, if there's one thing Ryan Day is good at as a coach, it's attacking cover 4. So I think part of the reason that he personally likes his defense running the single high cover 3 is because he's had a lot of success against cover 4. And so, what they did against Northwestern, again, so the safety is reading the number 2 receiver. So they sent the tight end vertically at that safety. And so to that Northwestern safety, that says, I have that guy in man, because it's probably generally assumed that he's going to, then the outside receiver will also go vertical. But what they did is sent Olave underneath, like he's running a shallow cross, and then up between the hash marks and basically split the safeties. And so that held that Northwestern safety and created an easy touchdown throw to Olave. And there's other examples. They did sort of a route out of the backfield with J.K. Dobbins. Day, as I said, is successful at doing things that sort of throw that cover 4 safety for a loop.
And I know this is a little difficult to picture in your mind. You may have to, hit that backwards 15 seconds button a couple times to listen through that. It would also help to check out Ross's article at BuckeyeScoop.com. He's got GIFs in there and all sorts of stuff that will kind of help you see exactly what he's talking about. But I mean, my takeaway from that article was that, every week we talk about how each defense is good at certain things, but then has some kind of built-in weaknesses. And I mean, it sounds like the built-in weaknesses to Northwestern's defense, which they are running and they're not going to really deviate from a whole lot in terms of a base look, is all stuff that Ohio State is fairly well positioned to take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's certainly been the last 2 years. So Northwestern actually had success even last year, which ended up being a blowout, in stopping Ohio State running the football in the first quarter, because they are able to bring those safeties and that overhang defender into the box and basically get 9 guys against 7 until Ohio State loosened them up throwing the football. And so, it's interesting because, Northwestern, by all accounts, is an elite defense this year. I mean, they're number 2 and the SP plus efficiency metrics, all the advanced stats support that. And they're really good against the pass. So it's really kind of a strength versus strength matchup. But again, then you can play the other game of who have they played? And what Big Ten quarterback is going to threaten those weaknesses that we just talked about in the Northwestern scheme? And so even though most teams, when they're really good on one side of the ball, they're not going to sort of change what they do when they play another really good team, I still am expecting Northwestern to throw some kind of change ups in there. One thing, for instance, is have those cornerbacks sort of try to jump an out route occasionally, or play more in the flats to try to create an interception, or, basically try to steal 1 or 2 possessions from Ohio State. Because I don't think they can just sit in their base defense, even with, how good they are. And they do have some legit players in the back 7. But I still don't think they're going to be able to just sit in their cover 4.
Well, you mentioned there that Northwestern is number 2 in the country in defensive SP plus. Sorry, SP plus. Sorry, put a dollar in the jar. They changed the name a year or 2 ago. That's good. On the other side of the ball, less good. 99th in the country in SP plus in offense. So I guess we'll just kind of keep this simple. You wrote quite extensively about this Northwestern defense and wrote 3 paragraphs about the Northwestern offense. So I'll just give you this one. What is the one thing Northwestern might be able to do that Ohio State fans would actually need to? If Ohio State fans see Northwestern doing fill in the blank on offense, that's a reason to worry on Saturday.
Yeah, I would expect Northwestern, Peyton Ramsey is athletic. If he has a strength, it's, getting the ball out quickly. I would expect some of those, what I've talked about in my article, some of the run pass option plays that again attack the structure of the Ohio State defense, throwing a backside slant behind linebackers coming up to play the run. I would expect a lot of quarterback run game, which has obviously been an issue for Ohio State in the past. I mean, to me, like, again, like, I think Indiana was a worse matchup for Ohio State, obviously, because the Ohio State run defense has been very good and the pass defense has obviously had its issues. And so I'm not certain that Northwestern can necessarily take advantage of Ohio State. But, I think that they'll certainly try to exploit some of those weaknesses. But they're going to need help from their defense, giving them a short field or two, as we just discussed.
Well, Ross, thank you for once again filling us in on kind of what to expect this weekend. You can find Ross's article and a whole bunch of other great content this week at BuckeyeScoop.com. We just had our great team of insiders covering all of the early signing day festivities on Wednesday. 21 new Buckeyes joined the fold officially, and Mark Givler, Bill Green, Alex Gleitman had a ton of great coverage there. Make sure you check that all out. And we are now 2 days away from the Buckeyes and Wildcats in Indianapolis. Tony Gerderman and I will be hitting the road tomorrow, driving over to Indianapolis. We will have a little bit of probably a pregame show night before thing on Friday night for you, and then more pregame on Saturday morning, cover the game, and then postgame afterwards as well. And then Sunday, Election Sunday, find out if Ohio State, everything Ohio State has gone through to potentially be a national champion this year, they will find out if they will have a chance to play for that national championship on Sunday. What a fascinating week this is shaping up to be. So make sure you check that all at BuckeyeScoop.com. If you are not yet a member, this would be a great time to do it. It's going to be a real interesting next month or so. You can just sign up at BuckeyeScoop.com, and it would be a great Christmas gift as well. The wonderful gift to give, the wonderful gift to receive, and it is the gift that does, in fact, keep giving all year round, an annual membership to BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure you check out all of our great podcasts. Alex, Bill, and Mark had a great episode of Gives in the Bank that they dropped in just reviewing all of early signing day. You can find that as well as all of our other great shows on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there. Also, leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're there. That will help other folks find the shows as well. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.